Hey, what's up? This your boy, Big Man. Welcome to Witty Apparatus, where we treat it like the barbershop, but you ain't gotta wait in line to get this scoop. And I don't know what's going on in these streets, man. Right now, beef is everywhere, man. I just did a story about an R&B singer and a supermodel beefing on a hip-hop station. You know what I'm saying? I just did a story the other day about some other folks beefing, but man, a lot of beef is going around, and the beef I'm gonna be talking about today is Tony Yayo getting at Rick Ross. Okay. For those of you who don't know, Tony Yayo is actually the right-hand man of 50 Cent. He is a long-time G-Unit affiliate. And Tony Yayo has always had 50's back in all altercations or any situations, and 50 has always rewarded Tony Yayo handsomely for his loyalty. Now, Tony Yayo has had his time in stint in jail. He did felony jail time, and upon getting out of jail, he had a record deal waiting for him, and he's currently the CEO for G-Unit Philly, G-Unit Records Philly affiliate, I should say. Now, Tony Yayo has had his times in the law and in the media. There was the famous 2007 charge where they said Jimmy Rosemond's son. And for those who don't know, Jimmy Rosemond is Jimmy Henchman, and Jimmy Henchman is a longtime rival of 50 Cent as well, man. He used to manage the game, so that'll help you put it together. But Tony Yayo and 50 Cent were said to have grabbed Jimmy Henchman's son and slap him and just make threats against him because they hated his dad. But they was later found out that those charges weren't accurate, and then the prosecutor actually dropped those charges as far as I know. And then I believe Jimmy Rosemond's, the mother of his son, actually sued 50 Cent and Tony Yayo, but I don't know how that ended up, if they settled out of court or if it was dropped as well. But back to the beef at hand. So now that you know who Tony Yayo is and his affiliation to 50 Cent, you can understand why there's animosity with him and Rick Ross. Now, back in 2008, Tony Yayo was actually a part of the crew from G-Unit that was talking trash about Rick Ross because he used to be a CEO. It was proven that Rick Ross used to work for the prison system, and in old school rules of the street, that would have never allowed Rick Ross any mention of being a boss, any type of way of ever being a real street figure, especially a head of any kind of organization or anything. But this is rap and it is entertainment, and those allegations have not hurt Rick Ross's career. And really, people are realists. They're like, man, he probably took the job because he needed to feed his family or something like that. It's common sense, and those rules of the street really don't transition into real life, not for anyone. And people who try to make them transition, they usually end up on the short end of the stick. Now, Tony Yayo did jab at Rick Ross again, because for those of you who don't know, Rick Ross just dropped a monster of an album, and people are really talking about it. I mean, it is bubbling in the streets. I mean, during a week where people should be talking about nothing but Drake, people are also talking about this Rick Ross album just as much. And Rick Ross has a song on there called Idols Become Rivals, and you can check my video out where I talk about him dissing Birdman on that track. But they point out, Tony Yayo sent out a tweet, and he basically was talking about the fact that Rick Ross shouldn't be able to, diss Birdman on anything. And this is the tweet word for word. He said, "A cop shouting out a rappers for you. This blank ain't real." So he's basically saying, he's like, man, he can't believe that Rick Ross, being a cop or an ex-cop or whatever you want to call him, is actually shouting out a rat. And to help you figure this out, the rat he's talking about is Jimmy Henchman, who I spoke about earlier. Now, Jimmy Henchman is said to have told on a lot of people, to try to lessen his sentence, because he's currently incarcerated because of some charges that had been brought up about his business handlings. And I believe there was also, and don't get me wrong, there was a drug trafficking and money laundering charge as well as witness tampering and murder for hire, which is probably the biggest charge. So Jimmy Henchman is looking at a lot of time, and it's said that he's been really telling on people. I mean, I can't really say ratting, because I don't know the situations of the case, and I would never get on not wax a record. I'm not a rapper, but I would never get on here and tell anybody not to cooperate with the law when it might be for the best interest of them. But I can't respect somebody who plays by the rules of the streets and then doesn't maintain to the rules of the streets. So if you pick a certain lifestyle, you should always maintain to those rules. So and that's where I think a lot of people get the whole snitching thing mixed up. I mean, it's not about a regular civilian going out there and something bad happened to them and them telling. I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. It's really about people who are in the underworld telling on other people in the underworld when they're all supposed to be under a code of silence. But you know, that gets misconstrued because, you know, rappers and everybody gets involved and people just don't know what they're talking about or whatever. And me, I'm just going based off of things that I've heard. So I'm not an expert as well, but that's just my way of breaking it down and how I see it. But with this being said, with that Tony Yayo tweet, I mean, it seems like he's kind of reigniting the G-Unit versus Rick Ross beef. And if any of you heard my other video as far talking about that issue, they're kind of it's like at a Cold War status between these two camps, between G-Unit and MMG. You know, they diss each other all the time, like sneak diss, and they obviously don't like each other. And it'll never be, it's one of those situations that'll never be repaired because 50 Cent with Rick Ross's baby mom with the whole lawsuit. And then Rick Ross, you know, very adamantly went on wax and pretty much laughed and, you know, did different types of interviews and was talking bad about 50 Cent when he was going through his bankruptcy. So that's not a relationship that'll ever repair. But Tony Yayo seems to be adding adding gasoline to the fire. Excuse me, he's adding gas to the fire here, and I don't see this getting any better. Also, Wack 100, the game's manager, has jumped in this as well, man. So it's an odd situation, man, because the game's new manager is a gentleman by the name of Wack 100, who is in all purposes the kind of the spokesman for West Coast street culture right now. I mean, everybody knows that Wack 100 puts his nose in everything. He put his nose in the Soulja Boy Chris Brown supposed to be beef. He put his nose in any beef that Game has or Ray J has, because he doesn't just manage the Game, he also manages Ray J. And, you know, they got a pretty tight alliance over there. Now, with that, I want to ask one question to you guys. Now, what do you guys think about all this beef, man? Do you think now that more serious heads are getting into this, do you think this all needs to cool out? Because when you start adding camps like G-Unit, MMG, you know, the Game, and these folks have had violent situations before in the past. Definitely MMG and G-Unit. I mean, they had a situation where Gunplay pretty much got beat up by everybody in G-Unit. I mean, they all took, it looked like a piñata. Like, everybody took chances hitting him, you know, and throwing him around like a rag doll. It was crazy, man. But with that, I hope it doesn't go that way, and I hope these fools just chill out, man. Cool it, man. Cool it, because it can go left quick, especially with the summer coming around. I know it's going to be more beefs, and it's going to be more people going on tour. It's going to be a lot of people moving around to different cities, and that is never good. With that, this your boy Big Man. Hey, thanks for coming to Witty Apparatus. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we out. Peace.